Okay, let's unpack this. We've got quite a stack of sources in front of us today. We're doing a deep dive into one of the most talked about rookies coming into the NFL season, Shedeur Sanders.
That's right. We're looking at scouting reports, some team analysis, and some really interesting pieces on coaching philosophies, especially how it all relates to quarterback development and, well, specifically the Cleveland Browns right now.
Yeah, and our mission here really is to be your shortcut through all this material. We want to pull out the most important nuggets, the key insight, maybe some surprising details, definitely the differing viewpoints.
Exactly. Help you get a quick, solid handle on what's a pretty complex situation brewing over there.
Because, let's be honest, Shedeur Sanders wasn't just any college quarterback. He was like a phenomenon.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone saw the numbers, the highlights, that presence he has.
And yeah, the whole Coach Prime's son thing was impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
But now he lands in Cleveland, and it feels like maybe one of the most crowded, most uncertain QB rooms in the whole league.
That's the real tension, isn't it? And that's what these sources are digging into. How does a college player with his specific background, his skill set, navigate this kind of landing spot?
Right, and maybe even bigger. What are the coaching approaches in Cleveland, especially with their recent shifts? What does that mean for his future?
And, for the team's success overall, it's all tied together.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. Shedeur Sanders' background. Most people probably know the basic son of Deion Sanders, NFL legend. Started at Jackson State, then that big move to Colorado.
Yeah, and the production, it really does speak for itself when you look at the stats year over year. At Jackson State 2021, 66% completion, over 3,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, only 8 picks. Pretty solid start.
And he just built on it. 2022, still in Jackson State, 71% completion, 3,732 yards, 40 TDs this time, and only 6 interceptions.
Then the jump, Power 5, Colorado 2023, and he keeps it rolling. 69% completion, 3,230 yards, 27 TDs, and just 3 interceptions, plus 4 rushing scores.
Wow. And then that final year, 2024, the sources point out this might be the most impressive statistically, 74% completion, over 4,100 yards, 37 touchdowns. Interceptions did tick up a bit to 10, but still.
And the accolades at Colorado were just nuts. Like over 100 program records. They retired his jersey already. Records for passing yards, completion rate, CD to INT ratio, passing TDs. The list goes on.
Okay, but here's where one of the scouting reports we looked at had some really crucial context. It talks about the general state of college QB play coming into the NFL now.
Right. There's this sort of concerning trend, a decline in fundamental NFL-ready skills.
Why is that?
Well, a lot of college offenses are these simple spread schemes, right? Guys aren't under center much, not calling plays in a huddle, not getting experience with snap counts, audibles, the basic stuff you absolutely need in the pros.
Ah, okay. So against that backdrop, Sanders stood out.
Exactly. That's the key point the sources make. He apparently had advanced tutoring. They even mentioned Tom Brady mentoring him, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, Brady, okay.
So because of that, his fundamentals are described as, really advanced for a college guy. Superb feet in the pocket, clean throwing mechanics.
That sounds like a rare thing these days, according to that report.
Very rare. A solid foundation that many other QBs in his class just didn't have.
All right, so if the fundamentals are advanced, let's dig deeper into that scouting report. What specific strengths did they really hone in on? Things NFL teams would want.
The mental side gets huge praise. Tremendous football IQ, superb instincts, just flat out very smart is how they put it.
Okay. And physically, beyond the mechanics.
Well, the mechanics are key strengths, right? That excellent footwork, the good throwing motion we mentioned. But also, he's seen as very tough, a natural leader, composed.
How does that translate on the field, like reading the game?
Good vision, definitely. Reads defense as well. And crucially, he works through progressions. He doesn't just lock onto his first read. He recognizes coverages, fronts quickly. And get this, the report mentions him keying on the feet of cornerbacks to anticipate breaks.
Whoa. That's next level stuff for a college QB. Shows processing speed.
It really does. And the result of that processing, accuracy. They call him a very accurate passer, excellent ball placement. He can beat tight coverage with precision. Advanced tight window passer was the phrase used.
What about arm strength? That always comes up.
It's deemed strong enough. Maybe not a cannon like some guys, but definitely good enough. especially for those short and intermediate routes where pinpoint accuracy matters most.
And he can move a bit too, right? Not just a statue back there.
Yeah, enough athleticism to navigate the pocket, scramble for yards if he has to, and importantly, he keeps his eyes downfield when he does scramble. He's looking to throw first.
There's a quote in there from an area scout that summed it up well.
Yeah, this really captures it. He won't wow with physical tools, but his arm is good enough, especially in the short and intermediary. Mentally, he can operate at incredible speed. He could be the most NFL ready as far as football IQ. He bleeds confidence and charisma. He'll own a team immediately because of his competitiveness and obvious advantage having grown up in the rare NFL bubble. Pro Bowl will not scare him.
Mentally, he can operate at incredible speed.
Right.
That just jumps out. Okay, but no prospect is perfect.
Right.
What were the weaknesses flagged in the report?
The main one mentioned is holding the ball too long. That's pretty common for college guys adjusting to the NFL speed, but still something to watch.
Which connects to the next point, right?
It's-
Needing to develop anticipation.
Exactly. Not waiting for receivers to be wide open, throwing them open. And yeah, holding the ball contributes to taking too many hits, another weakness listed. Plus, like that scout said, he's not an elite athlete. Not going to be a dynamic runner at the NFL level.
And they had a player comparison.
Yeah, Geno Smith. Similarities in, like, the overall skill set, passing ability, though the scout felt Sanders was maybe a bit better athletically, while Geno had the stronger deep ball coming out.
Okay, so overall, the prospect outlook from that report was pretty positive then.
Very positive. It basically concluded he should become a good NFL starter and, importantly, has the potential to be a championship-caliber franchise QB if he has talent around him.
That's high praise. Definitely paints a picture of a player with a high ceiling. Okay, so you've got this highly regarded college player, advanced fundamentals, high IQ, and the draft happens. Shedeur Sanders, 5th-round pick, to the Cleveland Browns. Entering, talk about a complex situation. That QB room is just jammed.
It's wild, isn't it? You've got Joe Flacco, the veteran Super Bowl MVP. He's 40, still kicking.
Amazing.
Then Kenny Pickett, former first-rounder they just traded for from a rival. Then Dylan Gabriel, another rookie but drafted higher, in the 3rd round.
And the elephant in the room.
Deshaun Watson, the massive contract. But recovering from 2 Achilles ruptures. Likely out for 2025. Still years left on that deal.
Man, just imagine being the coach trying to juggle all those personalities, contracts, expectations.
And for the Browns, a team that's famously gone through, 40 starting QBs since '99. They crave stability, and this feels like chaos.
The sources really highlight that challenge. Mike Clay, the NFL insider, predicted Flacco might even be a preseason cut. Then Pickett gets first-team reps, then Gabriel, then Sanders way down the line.
Yeah, and Mike Davis from Pro Football Talk voiced concerns Sanders might not even make the final 53-man roster, just because of the numbers game and the contracts ahead of him.
And the early minicamp reports kind of backed that up, didn't they, in terms of reps?
They did. Initially, Sanders was clearly running with the 4s. Pickett and Gabriel got the main reps with the 1s and 2s, while Flacco and Sanders split the 3s and 4s.
What did Coach Kevin Stefanski say about that? Did he address the distribution?
He did, but he really downplayed it. Said things like, it's the installation phase, the teaching phase, it's just off-season OTAR work. Basically, don't read anything into it yet regarding a final depth chart or training camp plan. Said they are so far away from that type of thought process. Standard coach speak, maybe, but that was the message.
Okay, so maybe the reps aren't the whole story yet. But how did Sanders actually look when he got his chances, according to these reports?
That's the interesting part. Despite the limited reps, mostly against backups, the reports were actually pretty glowing about his performance. Very consistent, very accurate.
Like specific numbers?
Yeah, day 1, 10 of 12 passing, that's 83%, 2 TDs, no picks. Highest completion rate of any QB that day.
Wow.
Day 2, even better, 8 of 9, so nearly 89%, and another touchdown. Again, best completion percentage.
So that accuracy praised in the scouting report. It showed up right away, even in that limited setting.
Seems like it. The ball's going where it's supposed to go.
What about Sanders himself? How's he handling being thrown into this QB blender? Any quotes from him?
Yeah, the source had some interesting bits. He seems to be handling it with surprising perspective, even finding enjoyment in it. He mentioned it being fun, being around Joe Flacco. Said something like, wow, I'm really with Joe Flacco right now, which, you can understand from a young guy.
Totally relatable.
And he said he appreciates Pickett's experience, notes Watson is still active in meetings, which he finds cool to learn from. Seems like he's trying to soak it all in.
That's a good sign, mentally. Okay, but to really get his situation, we need the offensive context. Let's talk about the Browns' offense under Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah.
His background, his philosophy, how has it changed?
Right. So Stefanski comes from that West Coast offense tree, some Air Coryell elements mixed in. But the biggest influence, the sources really stress this, is Gary Kubiak.
Kubiak, okay, known for.
Taking that West Coast base and heavily integrating the wide zone running scheme, and then tying everything off that with play-action passing. Run, play-action, deep shot.
And that worked really well for him initially in Cleveland, didn't it?
Oh yeah. 2020, his first year, Browns make the playoffs. He's coach of the year. They were a top run team attempts success rate, and they used that ground game to set up those deep play action passes, often from heavy formations. That was the identity. That worked.
Things changed. The sources point to a big strategic shift around 2022.
Yep. The Deshaun Watson trade, that's the inflection point. The team started trying to blend in his preferences, more spread looks, more shotgun, more focus on improvisation, plays outside the initial structure.
And the analysis we read connects that shift pretty directly to their offensive struggles, especially last season, 2024.
Directly. 2024 was, well, disaster offensively. Dead last in points per game, dead last in turnover margin, near the bottom in sacks allowed. And surprisingly, given Stefanski's roots, their rushing numbers cratered 2 yards, attempts, TDs, all way down.
And the source analysis was pretty blunt about why.
Yeah. It called the attempt to tailor the system to Watson, quote, made sense in theory, but proved short-sighted. Because Watson wasn't available consistently, and maybe wasn't effective enough even when he was playing in that adapted scheme.
What's really telling is hearing the players, the guys actually running the plays, kind of echo that.
Exactly. We have quotes from key offensive linemen, left guard Joel Bitonio, right tackle Jack Conklin.
What'd they say?
Bitonio basically said he preferred the earlier system that run and play action marriage, taking shots off play action from heavy sets. He said that's when they had their most success. He even noted he pulled way less in 2024 than in those good years. Fewer gap scheme runs, maybe.
Interesting detail. And Conklin.
Conklin was even more direct, said creating around an individual makes things tough for everybody else.
Ouch.
He said they needed to stick with what this team's been built around, and that last year they lacked identity offensively. Tried to do too much, didn't get good at any one thing.
Wow. That's pretty damning feedback from core players.
It really is,
Yeah.
straight from the guys in the trenches who have to execute it.
Okay, so you hear that. Stefanski has publicly said he agrees with his new OC, Ken Dorsey. They need an attacking offense. But Stefanski also has these maybe slightly controversial views on running the ball.
Right, he's famously pushed back on the whole establish the run idea, called it a fallacy.
His logic being.
His point, and it's backed up by some data from places like Football Outsiders, PFF, is that play action effectiveness isn't really tied to whether you ran successfully on the previous play. Defenses still have to honor the fake.
But he does still value running.
Yes, the sources clarify that. He does value running later in games, especially with a lead, leaning on people, closing games out. It's more about when and why you run for him.
Okay, this all loops right back to Shedeur Sanders then. You've got his scouting report profile, and you've got Stefanski's offensive journey and these recent struggles. How do those pieces connect?
This is where it gets fascinating. Dan Orlovsky, the former QB turned analyst, is quoted in one source calling Sanders a perfect fit, but for Stefanski's earlier system.
The 2020 system, the Kubiak influence.
Exactly. The one built around being under center more, heavy play action, controlling the line, quick progressions. Sanders' strength, that high IQ, the advanced fundamentals, reading defenses, getting the ball out accurately, they seem almost tailor-made for that kind of offense.
So the very things that make him stand out from the typical modern college QB could actually make him a better fit for the system the Browns were most successful with.
That's the argument, yeah, potentially. Orlovsky even said Sanders' mental game, how quickly he can supposedly take something from the whiteboard to the practice field, should force the organization to play him eventually.
And others in the building see that mental side too.
Yeah, Browns TE coach Tommy Rees praised his work ethic on the mental side, how he studies, and his ability to just find completions, find the open guy, even while learning.
Okay, let's try and tie these threads together then. You've got Shedeur Sanders, high college numbers, crazed fundamentals, really impressive football IQ for a rookie.
But he lands in Cleveland as a 5th-round pick. Into this, just logjam at quarterback, currently running with the 3s or 4s in minicamp.
And yet his actual skill set, the processing, the pocket passing traits, seems like it might align better with the offensive system that brought Stefanski his most success.
A system they seem to move away from, maybe to their detriment, when they tried to adapt for Watson.
So that's the core conflict, right? Does Stefanski, maybe hearing that feedback from his linemen, seeing the 2024 struggles, does he pivot back towards that Kubiak-style identity?
And if he does, could Shedeur Sanders, despite being a fifth-rounder, despite being low on the depth chart now, actually be a better long-term schematic fit than maybe some of the other guys in that room?
But the reality, right now, is the reps aren't there, even with those good minicamp stats we talked about.
Right, and being a fifth-rounder in a room with guys like Watson, Pickett, guys with guaranteed money or higher draft capital, that creates a really tough roster equation for Sanders.
Which leads to that speculation we mentioned earlier from insiders.
Exactly. Is he fighting just for a roster spot? Could he even be a trade candidate before the season if another team really values his specific traits and sees that potential fit elsewhere?
There's that quote from Tony Rizzo, the Cleveland radio host, that caught my eye. It was pretty provocative.
What was that one again?
He said, "It wouldn't surprise me if somehow it comes down to Shedeur making an emergency start to light his career on fire. He needs to play meaningful games to try and win. That's what he does, win."
Right. That really taps into that belief in his competitiveness, the sort of it factor. Ties back to that scout saying he bleeds confidence and won't be scared. It suggests, maybe if he just gets the chance, maybe the circumstances don't matter as much. He might just rise to the occasion.
And this whole situation makes that discussion we saw about QB gurus, like the Andy Reid piece, really relevant, doesn't it?
Totally. Does a great coach develop QBs, or do they just get the most out of guys who are already talented?
The Reid example showed it's complicated. Favre was already great. McNabb got much better with Reid. Alex Smith had a huge late career boost. But then others, not so much.
It's rarely simple. But good coaches, good schemes, they can definitely maximize what a player does well, hide the weaknesses, play to the strengths.
So the question for the Browns, for Stefanski, is can he become that kind of guru figure for someone like Sanders, especially if he does go back to that core offensive philosophy?
Could that system accentuate Sanders' IQ, his accuracy, his fundamentals? Could it maybe help mitigate the weaknesses, like holding the ball too long, by demanding those quicker throws that fit the scheme's timing?
So sort of practicalities just went out. Does the draft status, the crowded depth chart, the uncertainty about the offense's direction, does all that prevent Sanders from ever really getting a shot to see if that fit is real in Cleveland?
Sure. So wrapping up this deep dive, you've got Shedeur Sanders coming into the league with this really intriguing profile. Great college production, fundamentals people rave about, high football IQ.
But landing in arguably one of the toughest, most complex QB situations in the entire NFL with the Browns.
The scouting report saw real starter potential, maybe even franchise QB upside. His early minicamp throws look accurate, consistent, and some analysts see this like perfect theoretical fit with the offense Stefanski ran when he was most successful.
Yeah. The reality on the ground is a crowded room, fourth-string reps currently, fifth-round draft capital.
Yeah.
It creates a ton of uncertainty about his immediate path. Roster spot questions, even trade rumors.
Right. Which leads us to the final thought for you, the listener. Considering everything, a whole debate about coaching impact versus talent, like with Andy Reid, and the Browns' own recent identity crisis on offense.
How much does a coach's system and his commitment to it truly dictate whether a quarterback succeeds? Especially someone like Sanders, coming in with his specific profile, but maybe not the top draft pedigree?
Is Kevin Stefanski sticking to or returning to a specific offensive philosophy the key that could unlock Shedeur Sanders? Or will his opportunity in Cleveland depend way more on things outside that scheme? Injuries, trades, just the unpredictable nature of the NFL.
It's a really fascinating situation to watch unfold as we head towards the season. A lot of moving parts.